Today, we are delighted to be joined by Dr. Amber Kleckner, who is an assistant professor at the University of Maryland School of Nursing in Baltimore, Maryland. She has a PhD in human nutrition and has several lines of work exploring what, when, and how much to eat to alleviate cancer-related fatigue and other symptoms of cancer and side effects of treatment. I want to invite everyone to put questions in the chat or the Q&A box. And Dr. Kleckner says we can make it interactive. So if you have questions as they come up throughout the presentation, don't hesitate to put your questions in early. Otherwise, we will address them at the end of the presentation. I also would like to remind everyone if we could keep our questions general and not ask specific diagnostic related questions to your case, but questions that we can answer that might be applicable to the whole community. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Kleckner. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to be here. Here we go. All right, so my name is Amber Kleckner. As Melinda said, I'm an assistant professor at University of Maryland, Baltimore. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the importance of nutrition during and after cancer therapy. And although this is being recorded and it seems very formal, please feel free to interrupt me at any time and ask questions, and I'll address them as we go. So as you know, I'm sure you know more than you want to know about the digestive system. Cholangiocarcinoma is, of course, a disease of the digestive tract. When you eat a bolus of fat, a person secretes bile. That fat gets digested into these smaller micelles, where enzymes can attack these smaller micelles of fat into fatty acids, and then the fatty acids get absorbed. So cholangiocarcinoma, there's of course lots of different types of it, but a lot of people with this condition cannot create as much bile as usual, and therefore this whole system is disrupted, which can of course lead to many different symptoms and side effects. So I want to start my talk. Why is nutrition important for somebody who has cholangiocarcinoma or for somebody who's caring for somebody who has cholangiocarcinoma? So the first reason is that nutrition can help address clinical problems. So it can treat malabsorption. So malabsorption is, of course, when nutrients are not making it from your gut into your tissues. Nutrition can help by modulating what you're eating. You can help get around some of these problems. Nutrition can help prevent malnutrition and resolve nutrient deficiencies. So these are just fancy terms for saying you're not getting enough food or enough of any specific nutrients. Of course, what you eat can help resolve a lot of these deficiencies. Nutrition can help slow and reverse unintentional loss of lean muscle mass, which is very common in the cancer population. And then, of course, nutrition can help manage diabetes, hypertension, and other chronic diseases and comorbidities. People oftentimes come into the cancer situation with some of these conditions, or the cancer or the treatments itself can precipitate or exacerbate some of these underlying conditions. And nutrition is one way that you can help manage some of these without medications, which then, of course, can interfere with other medications, et cetera. So nutrition can be very, very powerful clinically. A second reason is that nutrition can help manage long-term side effects, especially side effects of the cancer treatment. So people that have cholangiocarcinoma often have intolerances to fat. There's also people can have intolerances to fiber or other nutrients. And of course, this can be due to the disease or it can be due to the treatments. Surgery and radiation are very common treatments for cholangiocarcinoma, and especially if any of these are done specifically to anywhere in the gut or anywhere in the digestive tract, it can lead to problems eating and digesting food. So again, like I said, by eating different types of food or different eating patterns, you can help get around some of these issues. Some people have problems chewing and swallowing. Also more related to like surgery or radiation to the mouth or the oral cavity or the esophagus. More systemic treatments such as chemotherapy can lead to more systemic side effects. Cancer-related fatigue affects nearly everybody who undergoes cancer treatment. And it's the outcome that I study mostly in my research. And there's definitely ways that you can use nutrition to help combat cancer-related fatigue. And then, of course, there's also other sort of more global side effects, such as cognitive impairment and other things that go along with chemotherapy and other treatments that we can use nutrition to help combat some of these issues. Third, healthy dietary patterns can help improve just general health. So by giving your body the nutrients that it needs, you can promote healthy gut, healthy digestion, healthy metabolism, physiology. Of course, you've probably heard a lot about chronic inflammation and how inflammation is bad. There are foods that you can eat that are just inherently anti-inflammatory. And none of these are secrets. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, these are things that can help you counter a lot of the other chronic inflammation that's being caused by cancer and its treatments. On the other side, there are pro-inflammatory foods, which are foods that people tend to think of as bad. So red meat, fried food, foods that are high in sugar. These add to the inflammatory state that might already be in your body. Similarly, healthy dietary patterns can minimize oxidative stress. This is another big thing that you hear in the media, popular culture a lot. Antioxidants are good. So antioxidants are naturally found in colorful fruits and vegetables. So by eating healthy fruits and vegetables rather than junk food, you can help your body just inherently regulate its own oxidative capacities. Lastly, healthy diet patterns can improve glucose regulation. As I said, some people might come into the cancer experience with diabetes, or other medications or other experiences might exacerbate glucose regulation, or glucose dysregulation, I should say, and healthy dietary patterns can help regulate that. So how might you be able to determine whether you do have malnutrition or malabsorption or some sort of clinical nutrition problem? The most common way that clinicians will assess nutritional status is body mass index, which is a ratio of your height to your weight. And as you can imagine, this is probably not very helpful in most of your cases. It can be helpful if you're just trying to identify if somebody's overweight. If you're if you have a huge study with thousands of people and you want to see how many people are overweight, yeah, this is great. But of course, there's a lot of problems with it. You've probably heard somebody who has a lot of muscle mass, but low body fat might be, they might actually be healthy, but they have a high BMI, so they're classified as obese when maybe they shouldn't be. Also, more commonly, somebody who has excess body fat can indeed be malnourished. If they're not getting the nutrients they need, they will be malnourished, but still have that excess body fat. And therefore, from a clinical standpoint, it's really hard to see the malnutrition. Not everybody who is malnourished is super skinny, and it can, therefore, the malnutrition might go undiagnosed. So one of the most important things that you can probably do that's very easy to monitor is just how much, if you're losing weight unintentionally. So just monitoring body weight. If you lose more than 10% of your body weight in about 6 months, that is definitely something to bring up with your clinician. The rapid weight loss, especially weight loss of muscle mass, could be indicative of cachexia or sarcopenia, or basically rapid loss of muscle mass. And this is something that should be addressed very quickly. The mini nutritional assessment is a popular screening tool, and I'll share my slides with everybody, and I'll include this in the appendix. It's something that you can do at home. You can also ask your care team if it's something they're familiar with. It's just a few short questions, and it's very useful for identifying somebody who might be at risk for malnutrition. Even before you can see changes in weight or changes in serum protein levels, which is also a very common clinical measure to see if somebody's malnourished. And it includes questions like if your appetite's been changing, if your food just intake patterns have been changing, as well as looking at body weight and several other questions. So if you have using any of these tools, if you decided that, yeah, maybe I am malnourished, or what's the next step? The next step is to try to determine why you are unintentionally losing weight. So is the person not eating? If they are not eating, why are you not eating? Is it a lack of appetite? Is it nausea? Are you having a hard time chewing? Is there pain in your mouth? Is there pain somewhere else? Like, why is somebody not getting the food? And if you can identify, obviously, the source of not eating, then that gives you a good thing to address. However, what if the person is eating? Are they not absorbing the nutrients? Is everything just running right through them? And there's diarrhea. That gives you more clues as to what you might be able to do to be able to maintain that weight and maybe even build back some of that muscle mass. So one of the most important things to do when you're trying to determine, why somebody might be losing a lot of weight is to keep a food log and a symptom log. And this will help you identify patterns. If there's any sort of triggers to some of these symptoms, you might be able to identify that. And it might not just be food and symptoms, but there might be other activities. Like if you don't get very much sleep one night, do you have a really bad day the next day? Or if you go for a walk after lunch, does that really help with your digestion? And there might be things that you're not even thinking about, but then if you're keeping these logs, you might be able to put them together and help you determine what's helping and what's not helping. And then hopefully you'll have more of those good days and fewer of those bad days. So other ways to address malnutrition and nutrient deficiencies. Of course, recommendations are going to look really, really different depending on what kind of clinical issues you're having. I always recommend to listen to your body. If something doesn't feel right, if something is painful, don't keep doing that. Listen to your body, write it down, talk to your clinical care team. It might be giving you some clues as to something else that's going on. And as far as eating and general nutrition, the emphasis should be on whole foods. You should always try to get, most of your nutrients from foods rather than supplements. Of course, there's going to be situations where people cannot get enough calories from foods. And there are a lot of popular nutritional supplements. For example, Carnation Breakfast Essentials has a lot of added vitamins and minerals. Ensure is also really popular, especially in the older population, because it's high in protein. But always talk to, I don't think I'm biased when I say there should always be a nutritionist, a clinical dietitian on your clinical care team. Ideally, somebody who's trained in or familiar with cancer, and tell them about what you're eating and drinking every day. A lot of fortified foods like breakfast cereals, like Carnation Breakfast, there's a lot of fortified things, and you can definitely be overdosing on calcium or iron or some of these nutrients, and you don't want to do that. So look at the labels, look what's in there, and talk to somebody about what you're taking to make sure that you're actually optimizing your diet for what what you need. Make sure you're taking these things for the right reasons, I should say. Also, addressing malnutrition. People who have cholangiocarcinoma often have poor fat absorption. So there's different things that you can do to help with that. One of them is to spread fat intake across the day with a little about it every meal. So a little bit at breakfast, a little bit at snack, a little bit at lunch, a little bit afternoon snack, a little bit at dinner. And that'll just, with preventing that huge bolus of fat might help your body digest it a little bit easier. Also aim for high quality fat sources, such as olive oil, rather than animal fat. And everybody's body is different. So some people might be fine with dairy fat, some people might not be. And just notice how your body feels after you consume various types of fat. So I said, try to eat small, frequent meals throughout the day. If you have diarrhea, definitely hydrate to replace those lost fluids. All right, healthy eating. So healthy eating has wide-reaching health benefits. It can help improve a plethora of metabolic diseases. So in this next section, we're going to talk about different tips for you to help make positive, sustainable changes to your diet. So healthy eating. There are no secrets here. I wish we did have, miracle supplements and miracle dietary patterns, but unfortunately, not quite, unfortunately, because you probably already know what you should be doing. People should eat diets that are high in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean protein. People should avoid processed foods, foods that are high in sugar, foods that people tend to think of as junk food, ice cream, chips, things like that. When you're thinking about how to change your diet, I recommend not making drastic changes, but just making small changes that are more sustainable and that you can adhere to long term. So, and eat healthy 90% of the time, and don't feel bad about eating a little bit of junk food here and there. If you try to make super drastic changes, you're just going to resent yourself, and that's not going to be long term. So I really like, this is the American Institute for Cancer Research. They have a lot of really good tips on their website. And they are pushing for plant-based foods due to healthy fat and healthy fibers, but really try to increase fruit and vegetable intake, whole grains. You don't need a lot of meat. Definitely don't need a lot of meat. You don't actually need meat at all. So if you can get protein through beans and nuts and other sources, that's great. So I mentioned like just adding, what you can do is you can take an assessment of what you're already eating and see how you can make it healthier. Maybe you love noodles. Instead of buying white noodles, try whole wheat noodles and see if you like those. If you love rice-a-roni, that's great. Add a can of beans to that rice-a-roni. It's going to have the same flavor, and it's going to give you a little bit more fiber and a little bit more protein. Here is a list for your reference of high nutrient, low preparation snacks. So these are things that you can keep around the house that you can grab instead of those Cheez-Its or potato chips. So I divided them into high calorie and low calorie. Some high calorie, high nutrient, low preparation snacks: nuts, dried fruit, cottage cheese. This one has a lot of protein in it too. Actually, all these do: hard-boiled eggs, either with or without mayonnaise, canned tuna. Some low calorie, high nutrient, low preparation snacks: vegetable juice, like low sodium V8 is excellent. You can add, a glass of this to any meal, and it gives you a great source of vegetables. Choose your favorite fresh vegetables: carrots, peppers, cucumbers, celery. Add some hummus for a little bit more protein and flavor. Oatmeal, add your favorite toppings. Herbal or green tea is a great warm beverage, especially in the winter and cold days. And then next, I'll talk about overcoming barriers to poor eating habits. There are many barriers to healthy eating, including the mental burden of meal planning, grocery shopping, food preparation. With older adults specifically, many are set in their ways and don't really think about meal planning anymore. So I know a lot of these recommendations might seem obvious, but a little reminder can always go a long way. So set goals. And when goal setting, focus on dietary patterns rather than individual nutrients. So some examples might be to eat some vegetables at every lunch and every dinner, or limit yourself to like one dessert item per day. Another goal could be based on the clock. For example, no junk food after 8 p.m. I say avoid goals based on body weight. And this is, of course, unless, if the body weight is a clinical issue, then of course you should be monitoring that and setting goals. Social support. If someone's changing their diet, it's helpful to get those with whom they share meals on board too. It's not fun to be eating a salad when the person across from you is eating this, delicious cheeseburger. So try to go into it together, especially for older adults who are, just preparing meals for like 1 or 2 people. That can get burdensome. So you can freeze some for later, eat with friends, neighbors, try to make sure that mealtime is enjoyable. Accountability. There's a lot of great apps out there these days that can keep you accountable to some of your goals. These apps are also nice because you can recognize, how much you're eating or how frequently you're eating. MyFitnessPal is a good one. It's free. As I said, add vegetables to dishes you already eat. So making pasta, add some frozen peas, add a can of black beans to your taco meat. There are a lot of really good food delivery services too. They're popping up everywhere. Instacart's awesome. That way you don't have to, go to the grocery store to get your fresh fruits and vegetables, or any fruits and vegetables for that matter. Especially when you're undergoing treatment, you can get immunocompromised, and just going out can be scary. So, you should look into food delivery services in your area. I know fresh fruits and vegetables can be expensive. Frozen food is always in season. Seasonal food tends to be cheaper. See if there's any public markets in your area. There are also a lot of local programs that are springing up around the US that serve people of low socioeconomic status to improve access to fresh food. So you can see if any of them are in your area. And there are many experts who can help address nutrition issues. So as I said, everybody should have a nutritionist or clinical dietitian on their care team. And if the doctor that you're working with doesn't know anybody, one of the benefits of COVID is that there's telemedicine is everywhere now. So you might be able to find somebody, who isn't even in your state, but who knows your specific condition, and will be able to meet with you regularly and help address some of the specific issues that you have. If food access is an issue, Meals on Wheels is a company that delivers nutritious meals to older adults. You can see if that's in your area. And as your disease either progresses or changes over time, you'll probably encounter a ton of different issues, and a lot of them have treatments or just have something you can do to help alleviate some of the burden that it causes you. So, don't be afraid to bring up any issues with chewing, any issues with swallowing. There are dentists, there are speech and swallowing experts that might be able to help you deal with some of these issues. Also, nutrition and exercise go hand in hand. So, physical therapists might be another awesome addition to your team. They might be able to help you with digestion issues, either with the timing of eating or whether you should move before or after a meal, or different postures that can help with your digestion. So this is where my talk will get a little bit more interesting, I think, for people. So supplements, everybody wants a supplement. What can I take that can help cure my cancer? What can I take to help me feel better? Supplements are so appealing because they're so accessible, they're so easy. However, the bad news is that I prepared this talk specifically for today, and there are no studies. There are 0 published studies looking at dietary supplements to treat cholangiocarcinoma, and 0 that can help relieve any symptoms. So, and this is really disappointing. And in fact, some antioxidants can interfere with chemotherapy. So I think a lot of people are under the pretense of, these supplements might not help, but they're not going to hurt. And actually, some of them can. A lot of these supplements are very powerful, and they are going to help in, one specific situation, but they could actually be harmful in other situations. So whatever you are reading about or hear about and get excited about, always, always, always bring it up with your clinical care team, and they can help you decide, if you should take it. If so, what doses, what timing, so that it, best works with the other things that you have going on in your life. Multivitamins might be okay, but again, bring that up with your clinical care team too, and bring the bottle to your appointment so you can go through what nutrients might you need, what nutrients might, there might be concentrations that are too high in one but better in another one. So talk about it, talk about it regularly with your clinical care team. Protein supplements might be okay. They might actually be recommended if you're having a hard time getting protein. Again, something to talk to your clinical care team about. And these are, like I said, only if you can't get the nutrients from whole foods. Whole foods have the fiber, they have the good fats, they have lots of micronutrients that are not in these pills. So when in doubt, get it from the whole foods. How about the ketogenic diet? This is also huge in the media. The ketogenic diet is low in carbohydrates, high in fat, And the idea is that by eating a ketogenic diet that's super low in sugar, cancer cells have different metabolism than healthy cells. And the idea is that this ketogenic diet will starve the cancer cells while keeping your healthy cells healthy. And I understand the theory. However, your liver, your muscle cells have ways to make glucose and maintain your blood glucose levels at a very constant rate and feed your brain, et cetera. There's also some theories that a ketogenic diet might be able to increase the efficacy of chemotherapy. But this research is really, really, really in its infancy. And for people with cholangiocarcinoma, many people cannot tolerate a high-fat diet. So in many situations, I'm not going to speak for any specific situation, but I think in many situations, it's actually going to cause more harm than good. If it's something that you are super excited about, definitely talk to your doctor and definitely do not do it just on your own. As far as the research around chemotherapy, it hasn't even been shown in humans, much less in people with your condition under your specific chemotherapy regimen. So it would just be sort of a gamble. Oh yeah, and that's to remind you of how fat is digested. And fasting, that is another very popular topic in the media. There are theories about fasting directly around the chemotherapy infusion, so about 24 hours before and 24 hours after chemotherapy, to enhance the anti-cancer effects of chemotherapy and mitigate off-target side effects. So that just means it helps maintain the health of the tissues that are not the cancer. And I think this is a really exciting line of research. Data in mice and in a few human studies so far have supported this theory. If you or your loved one is in a situation where they're having a hard time keeping weight on and they're rapidly losing weight unintentionally, this would probably not be a good approach. But if you are maintaining a stable weight and you are excited about this, definitely talk to your doctor. And this is one of those things, don't do it alone, do it only under the direction of a physician and oncology nutritionist. They can tell you specifically when you should start fasting, when you should stop fasting, how much water you should be drinking, if you should be drinking, or if you should be taking any amino acids or sodium or anything like that. And they can tell you if there's any symptoms or things that you're experiencing where you should stop the fast. Because of course you don't want to, be hospitalized because you tried fasting and then you got sick and, et cetera. So everybody on your clinical care team should know that you're doing this and, be supportive and encouraging for something like that. There's also a lot online about this fasting mimicking diet, which is basically it's, I think, also right around the chemotherapy window, and it encourages just very low calorie consumption of very specific foods, like broths and stuff like that, which is supposed to also put your body into a ketotic state, but allow you to eat a little bit of food. And it is marketed really, really hard to be this optimized dietary regimen. But in fact, the research has only just begun in the last decade or so, and nothing is optimized about this regimen. It's very exciting, and I'm really excited to see where the science goes. But it's definitely very, very experimental at this state. So lastly, I'm going to share a little bit of research that I've personally been doing on diet and nutrition to address cancer-related fatigue. I just completed a study. It was a Mediterranean diet study with people who are undergoing active chemotherapy. And I was looking at fatigue. That was my primary outcome. And what you're looking at here is the fatigue scale, where a higher score is higher quality of life, less fatigue. And then this is over the 8-week period of the study. And the green is the people who are in the Mediterranean diet group. The gray is the control group. And as you can see, there's not a lot of difference between the two groups over the course of the study. However, when we divided our cohort into people who had a good diet, or I should say a diet that was more closely related to the Mediterranean diets before they started the program, versus people who had diets that were further from the Mediterranean diet at the start of the program, The people who had diets that were not close to the Mediterranean diet before the program and then started the Mediterranean diet, they actually had greater improvements in fatigue. So these people were actively on chemotherapy, yet their fatigue, their quality of life, their fatigue decreased over the course of the study, whereas those in the control group was rather stable. So this is some of the first evidence that eating a Mediterranean diet during chemotherapy can help alleviate cancer-related fatigue. My second line of research is I'm looking at nutrient timing and circadian rhythm to regulate cancer-related fatigue. So circadian rhythm is these natural 24-hour natural 24-hour cycles where it's natural part of the human existence, where when the sun is out during the day, we are eating, we are active, we are awake. And then when the sun goes down and it's dark, that's when we're sleeping and not moving. And lots of modern conveniences are interfering with our body's circadian rhythm and its alignment with, the 24-hour sun rhythm. So working past sundown, TV, mobile devices, other bright things at night, the snacking culture where people are eating, all of the time, even up until bedtime. All of these things can interfere with the circadian rhythm. There's also, the obesity epidemic and metabolic dysfunction, which can also interfere with metabolism and circadian rhythm. On top of that, there's cancer, there's chemotherapy, there's all these physical, emotional, mental stressors that can completely throw the circadian rhythm off the tracks. This, and this is my theory now, I would think that this is what causes a lot of the chronic fatigue and a lot of the metabolic derangement that occurs during the cancer experience. So my hypothesis is that if we can develop a program to entrain the circadian rhythm, it will help improve a lot of these symptoms. So specifically, I'm looking at time-restricted eating. So this is an eating pattern. In my study, we tell people to eat within a 10-hour window during the day, which 10 hours isn't even that short. It can be like 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Can still fit your 3 traditional meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You might just have to, nudge one around a little bit. And basically don't eat after dinner. And we did a very small pilot study, single-arm study, where we recruited 39 people. The people were very willing to try. They were able to adhere to the time-restricted eating regimen. So now we're conducting a randomized controlled trial where half the people will be assigned to eat within a 10-hour window, and then half the people will be told to continue with their normal eating windows, which would be larger than 10 hours. And we're going to see if that has measurable effects on fatigue. So my take-home messages is that nutrition is very powerful and it can help manage symptoms and side effects. Everyone should have a nutritionist, and specifically somebody who is familiar with the cancer trajectory on their clinical care team. These nutritionists have lots of answers. They can answer questions that you didn't even think to ask. And then lastly, there are no, secrets that your oncologist didn't tell you, like all of these books that are out there. There are no miracle supplements. Eat your fruits and vegetables, your whole grains, your fiber. Shy away from that junk food, and that's one of the best things that you could do for your body. So I do have some additional resources and readings, which, like I said, I can share these with you guys so that you can have them. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if anyone has any questions, I can field them now.
Yes, we did have some good questions come in. So I will start with a few. So I think you touched a little bit on the fast. I just want to make sure we got it all. Are the benefits of cholangio patients engaging in fast, such as intermittent fasting, water fasting, caloric reduction, and/or fasting for several days in a row prior to treatment? With regards to my initial inquiry, the studies about the benefits of, or detriments are very small, and I can't find a singular opinion, so it'd be helpful to hear hers. So I think you addressed most of that, but if you want to touch any more on that, go right ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have a whole lot more to say, but yeah, it's really exciting research, and there's a lot being done right now about it. And like I said, if your weight is pretty stable and you're really excited about doing it, I mean, something like this I think is really powerful because it gives you something that you can do, something that you can physically just, it feels like you're helping yourself. And, that has very powerful, mental and physical effects. I think metabolically, I think it makes a lot of sense. You're right that there's not a lot of clear scientific evidence out there at this point. But definitely talk to your doctor about it, do it under their supervision for sure. And a lot of people have, chemotherapy regimens, every 3 weeks or every 2 weeks or whatever. And, try it 1 week. And if it's, if you feel better, like keep doing it. And if you're feeling like a truck hit you, like maybe don't do it again. You can kind of use yourself as, a guinea pig there, and see if it works, and talk to your clinical care team. And, you might be able to optimize it for your specific situation.
On whole grains, I use a fresh baked multigrain bread from a local baker, no preservatives, etc. I worry that I'm in turn introducing too much starch, but would you consider the benefit from the whole grains outweigh the starch and sugar?
Yeah. So I think that sounds excellent. Multigrain bread from a local baker with no preservatives is an excellent thing to be eating. It shouldn't be your whole meal. It should be complementary to, the protein and the vegetables and the other stuff that you're eating. As far as like how much is too much starch, like I can't answer that. It depends what else you're eating. It depends how many calories you need and how many you're getting and all. But yeah, I don't think you're going to be eating too much simple sugars from that kind of bread. So I think you're good.
Okay. Thoughts on organic fruits and veggies, a gluten-free diet, or cancer-fighting foods?
Yeah, so organic fruits and veggies, that's also pretty controversial. I think it couldn't hurt. There's a lot of guides out there as to like which foods the pesticides and all are like directly touching, like the strawberries can like absorb some of the pesticides and all. So they recommend that you get organic strawberries, but some of the other vegetables, they just might wash right off and it's not as big of a deal. They're a lot more expensive. I'm kind of under the sort of in the impression that if you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, like that's going to be better for you than avoiding a fruit because it's not organic. If you have the means to buy organic, I think it couldn't hurt, but I don't know if it's, a huge deal. Some of the organic vegetables, of course, are treated with like organic pesticides, which, it's like this toxin that's extracted from a beetle and then concentrated, and you would never find it in those high concentrations in real life. So it's like, well, is that healthier than man-made, or it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. But yeah, you might want to look into, which fruits and vegetables it might matter more for. Gluten-free, yes. So that's a good question. People have a lot of individual differences between, there's a lot of individual differences between tolerance to gluten. And there's still a lot of research in trying to identify who is sensitive to gluten and who isn't. So, unfortunately, a lot of the patients who are probably listening to me right now do have gut issues. And I think going gluten-free for 2 weeks and just seeing what happens, it doesn't hurt. Some people just say their mind feels cleaner and their gut feels cleaner, and they just have this weight that's lifted from them after they go gluten-free, and they don't have celiac disease, and they don't have anyone in their family who has any of these intolerances, but there's just something that we haven't identified yet that might be there. So yeah, if you try it and it doesn't do anything, it might not do anything, but it's one of those things that's worth a try. Cancer fighting foods. Yeah, unfortunately, the research just isn't there for me to tell you yes, if you eat this many of these things every day, it's going to help. It's more about patterns. It's getting into that healthy pattern and eating fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans every day. And, of course, you can have some chocolate cake at your birthday. You can have a little bit of stuff here and there. Even every day you can have a little bit of dessert or a little bit of something. If you eat healthy 90% of the time, that's the best thing that you can do for yourself.
So this next question is, I guess, kind of along that line. If antioxidant supplements can interfere with therapy, what are the implications of consuming antioxidant foods?
Yeah. So the antioxidants that are in the supplements are at concentrations that are hundreds and thousands of times greater than anything you're going to eat in an apple or a tomato or anything like this. They're therapeutic concentrations of these antioxidants. So you don't have to worry about overdosing on antioxidants from eating fruits and vegetables. Not a concern.
Okay. Do you believe there is any benefit to eating certain mushrooms, such as turkey tail, while having chemo? Are there any particular vegetables that are better than others when someone is immunocompromised?
Yeah, so I actually don't know the answer to either of your questions. Mushrooms are not very widely studied, and I think they should be because there's a lot of really interesting compounds in them. So I don't know, I'm sorry. And then particular vegetables that are better than others. Again, I don't know. There are, more vegetables that are like highly concentrated in specific nutrients. Kale, spinach are awesome. They're going to be better than, iceberg lettuce, which is mostly just water. But I don't know of any specific vegetables that are going to be helpful. And then of course it's like, well, what are you like for what outcome? Is it for the cancer fighting or is it for the fatigue or like that would depend.
So a lot of us are told when our immune system is low to stay away from fresh vegetables and fruits because of the.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Cooked or boiled.
To cook them to kill any sort of anything that might be in there. Yeah, actually, that's a good point, and I don't know a lot about that. Okay. Talk to your clinical care team.
There you go. Okay, regarding the circadian rhythm, should eating window be all during daylight, like dinner before dark?
All during the daylight and then dinner. Oh, okay. Yeah. So yes, the eating window should be during the day, not at night. And the optimal eating window has not been established yet. As you can imagine, there's only been like 3 studies in the cancer population, and one of them was mine, but they've all been like this year. So the optimal eating window hasn't been established yet. But what we have learned from the mouse literature and some of these and some of the human literature and other populations is that delaying the window in the morning probably doesn't make a big difference. It's mostly like not eating after dinner. So if you eat dinner at a normal time, like 6, 7, and then just stop eating after that and have about 3 hours before bed, that helps with sleep. And in my opinion, it probably my hypothesis is that it helps increase the quality of sleep and then helps with the fatigue and metabolism and all. I don't it's important to not be super annoyed at yourself either. And like, oh, sorry, I can't eat with you guys the rest of I can't eat with my family because I'm eating at 5 and not at 6. Like, then you're just, everything's going to be annoying. So, eat your dinner with your family at 6 o'clock and then just, don't have that popcorn or that ice cream at 9 p.m. when everybody else is but, eat as a family, eat with your friends, and just try to work around your typical schedule and your typical preferences. Or like I said, you're going to resent yourself and it's not going to be sustainable.
Okay. And as part of your study, when did the control group eat and when did they stop each day? Did you say 9 to 7 or something like that?
Oh, so I let people choose the eating window based on their schedule and preferences. We tell them during the day. We say if you have no restrictions, try to have 3 hours before they go to bed. And then people, to be eligible for the study, their eating window has to be greater than 12 hours. And that just means basically you have coffee in the morning and then eat before bed. Like, that's a 14-hour window if you get 8 hours of sleep. And we just tell them not to make drastic changes to their diets.
Okay. So you mentioned meat is not necessary. What are the key things to eat if not eating meat?
Yeah, so protein. So make sure you get enough protein. And this is also something you could talk to your nutritionist about if there's vitamin B12, zinc. It also depends what other animal protein you might be, if you're eating eggs, if you're eating milk and dairy products, you might be fine on your micronutrients. But if you're doing a vegan diet, then you might need a little bit more help with supplements or with specific mushrooms or specific things that can help you get some of those nutrients. But yeah, protein's the big one. And there's nuts, beans are a very easy, very cheap thing that you can add to all of your meals. Hummus, some of dairy actually is a really good source of protein. So Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, just snacks, meals, like to make sure you have protein in there.
Okay. What about sugar? This is always asked a lot. There are so many studies that sugar feeds cancer. We use protein drinks almost daily. Does the sugar content outweigh the benefits? So two different questions there.
Yeah. So because a lot of protein drinks have a ton of sugar. Yeah, I get it. So yeah, so sugar is not, you don't need sugar. And as far as like, is it feeding the cancer? I mean, I think that's controversial. It's so intuitive and it's so easy to understand how, sugar might feed your cancer, but sugar is not good for any of your tissues. So I don't, as I said, the patterns are the most important. So if you're eating fruits and vegetables and then you have a protein shake that has, 10 grams of sugar in it, like that's nothing to worry about. If you are eating a shake in the morning and it's 30 grams of sugar and 10 grams of protein, that might be something where you might want to rethink maybe a healthier breakfast. If you're exercising, like having some sugar protein beverage after your workout is probably fine. You should talk to a nutritionist about specifically what your patterns are and what your goals are for the protein drink, to see if it is the best solution or if there's another thing that might be better.
I'm not sure I understand this question, but maybe you will. What about low MAD foods helping with bowel problems?
Oh, is that the the FODMAP?
No.
Yeah.
Might have to come back to that. Maybe someone could elaborate on that question.
That's something I read about a while ago and I forget the details. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But I think that might be, my answer might be the same as to the gluten question. People have intolerances to things and they don't know why. So by eliminating like certain foods, it might help you and we might have no reason why, but if it helped you, great. And again, if you have celiacs or if you have something that might give you a predisposition to some sort of food intolerance, then it's definitely worth looking at further, and talk to an RD. So I talked a little bit about this. So registered dietitians are able to give you specific advice about your condition and your diet. So I'm a PhD, I'm a nutrition scientist. I'm actually not allowed to tell you like, oh, you have this specific cancer, you're having this specific treatment, this is specifically what you should eat. People who have CSO behind their name, it's usually RD, registered dietitian, and then CSO, that is like a clinical oncology specialty in nutrition. That's the best. If you can find a person with that sort of credential, that's the best.
Okay.
And even if it's online, even if they're not in the same state as you, like they might be able to help you a lot.
So great topics. Any feedback on Crohn's and how your study could help with this illness?
Yeah, so no, I do not work specifically with this population, and I bet there's other people that can give you way better advice than I could.
No. Okay, and here's some elaboration on the first question. Well, first is FODMAP FODMAP, and then there are high and low MAD food lists. You eat sourdough bread and eliminate onions and garlic. So that was kind of explaining that.
Okay, yeah, and that's not something I know a lot about personally, so I'm sorry. But if it might be one, I mean, it sounds like those foods are probably fine. Any sort of drastic changes, like talk to a nutritionist, make sure you're getting everything that you need to get. And it might be through different means. And that's great. I think everybody should be thinking about diet and thinking about how they can optimize it for themselves, because the research is embarrassingly low. So by doing these own sort of mini experiments on yourself, I think should be encouraged. But just do it under the direction of someone who can be monitoring you for malnutrition and deficiencies and things like that.
So maybe with people with cachexia or sarcopenia, what is the best way to build muscle mass back?
Combination of diet and exercise. And this is also something you should do under the direction of a physical therapist or oncologist, whether it's like a walking exercise or weight training, or there's a lot of like the therapeutic bands, the stretchy bands that you can get resistance training without using, hardcore weights, is an excellent way just to simulate that. that anabolic system to help build it back, and then make sure you're getting enough protein. Again, talk to your doctor about your specific issues.
Okay. So what do we know about how the metabolism changes after cancer? How does it impact glucose tolerance?
Yeah, so I think so. I know a little bit more about like how the treatments are affecting metabolism, and so yeah, I mean, a lot of people just come in, like a lot of especially older adults will come into the cancer experience with prediabetes and not even know it. And then they're getting steroids, and then they're getting chemotherapy, and then they're getting these other drugs. And it's just, and then their sleep cycles are thrown off, and they're stressed out, and they're depressed, and they're anxious. And all of these things are just contributing to insulin resistance and glucose intolerance. And it's really hard to tease out specifically how the cancer, is affecting, whole body metabolism. So there might be a more specific answer to your question, but I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. But not eating junk food is always a good thing.
Okay, so I have heard it's good to let the liver rest from food for about 12 hours each day. Is this something that is helpful for patients with cholangiocarcinoma? It seems like it helps me. That must be maybe along the same line as the fasting.
It sounds like it is. To let the liver rest for 12 hours is probably, don't eat after dinner, and then, eat 9 a.m. the next morning. And this hasn't been tested specifically in cholangiocarcinoma, and I hope it is tested very soon, because especially being, like I said, part of the digestive tract, I don't know, I would theorize that it would help. But there is the scientific evidence isn't there.
What are your thoughts on whey protein rather than Ensure, etc.? What is your definition?
Yeah. Whey protein is great because it's pure. Ensure often has a lot of added sugar. I know they do have like a lower sugar line out these days, so you should look at, and it depends. Like if you're somebody who is super active and eats 3,500 calories a day, however many grams of sugar is in Ensure is like not a big deal. If you're eating 1,200 calories a day because you are, a small 90-year-old pound woman, like that's going to be a lot more sugar to your system. So that's something that you would need to talk to about with your clinical therapy team.
Okay. What is your definition of high calorie versus low calorie snacks? Do you go by a number? I thought hard-boiled eggs were a good low calorie choice.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it was kind of arbitrary. So I've given this talk, or I should say a similar talk to cancer survivors, where weight loss is like a big thing, and, trying to reduce high calorie snacks and stuff. I know in this population, weight loss is not really a big deal. So, it was kind of arbitrary the way I categorize those things. Okay. Egg whites are low fat and definitely excellent. It's the yolk that has a lot of fat and calories in it.
Okay. This person uses HelloFresh for food delivery service each week, and I found it easy and nutritional depending on which entrees are chosen. Do you ever recommend ox bile or for fat absorption? Or yeah, I think that's what it said.
So the food delivery service, I think that's awesome. I'm so glad that there's so many like nationwide services out now, because it eliminates that whole meal planning, cooking, or, the shopping, the food preparation. It just eliminates all of that sort of mental stress that just, on your doorstep, this is what you need to do, and you have a healthy meal in 30 minutes. I think those are awesome. And I hope insurance covers them one of these days, personally. The second question about the medication for digestion, I don't know anything about that.
Shoot, I lost my question. Are you familiar with stigmasterol, a plant-based sterols, which benefit inflammation and liver function?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Do you have any information on doing coffee enemas to clean your GI tract?
Oh, no, I don't. I do not have any information about that.
Interesting. Are you familiar with the Roux-en-Y procedure and its effects on nutrition?
Yes, a little bit. I guess, what is your...
Just any research thoughts on people who have had Roux-en-Y procedure and nutrition?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people are very happy with that surgery, at least in the short term, like within the first 5 years. And then after that, it kind of diverges as to, people who, think it was great, and then think some people who like start to regret it. I think that those people think a lot about specifically what and when people should eat to, prevent malnutrition and to encourage absorption of those essential nutrients. With cancer plus like a gastric surgery, there's a lot going on there, and you should definitely and not just you, but everybody should trust that you're a nutritionist. If you don't like them, like, go somewhere else. You should be on the same page as far as, what you think is helping yourself, or else, it's not going to be helpful.
Yes. So any recommendations for those in treatment who suffer with the nausea and the taste bud changes and the inability to eat?
Oh yeah, it's awful. That's one of those things, listen to your body. A lot of the taste changes, fortunately, are temporary. Some people, like, water doesn't taste good, and it's like, oh, like, what do you do? And you do what you can. Sometimes the mouth sores, they have some pretty good, magic mouthwash to help with the mouth sores. And the chemotherapy nurses are really, really valuable sources of tips. So, using plastic utensils rather than metal utensils sometimes helps, depending on what regimen you're on. Ask them. But fortunately, that is a temporary thing.
Yes. Yeah. And again, other suggestions on the weight loss, especially with those issues with the nausea and food not tasting good, and they're doing a protein shake a day, but are looking for other suggestions.
Yeah, so smoothies are good for that, because you can make them with yourself and not add sugar. So you can put in, vegetables that you like. Bananas usually make things taste delicious. And then you can add yogurt for protein. You can add flax seeds. You can add basically, what you would want to be eating, but you just can't tolerate the whole food. You can throw it into a smoothie. You can add ice to make it cold. You can make it room temperature, sort of tailor it to what you can do that day. You can also freeze them and make little popsicles if that helps. That's okay. All I got. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We still have a few more questions I want to get through, because some of these are really good. Is dairy okay to eat because of the hormones? Worried about cheese claiming it causes cancer. She would love to know more.
Yeah, that's a really controversial topic, and I don't know the details of both sides of the argument. And it's really heated. So just from, a nutrition scientist standpoint, I know some people are very intolerant to dairy protein. And if you're one of those people, don't do it. But I can't comment on like organic milk versus not, versus cheese versus yogurt. I don't know.
Okay. What about water? I've learned from an alternative doctor to drink only good water. I'm filtering my water from the fridge now. How much actual water should we be drinking each day? And water not including other liquids?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of like herbal teas. I think it's a really good way, especially in the winter. I mean, now it's summer, so I'm not drinking a lot of herbal tea, but I think that's like a really good way to get your fluids in. As far as filtering water, and I would talk to like more of your local experts about if you should be filtering it, or what you should be filtering out, or if you should be adding anything back in. I'm not an expert in that in that area, but I know there is important things that you can look at as far as, water quality. Drinks, you can do, so like, there's a lot of hidden calories in a lot of like coffee beverages that you should watch out for, especially when it comes to sugar, but then also like cream. If you're buying your coffee out at a restaurant or at Starbucks or something, you might not realize like that this is 600 calories. But if you make your own coffee at home, if you make your own tea, that's actually a really good source of antioxidants and some micronutrients.
What are your views on sugar supplements like stevia?
Oh, so this is just like my personal opinion, but your taste change, you can train your taste. And I think if you avoid those artificial sweeteners, you can train yourself to really enjoy whole foods. So, if all you're eating is apples, and apple's going to start, tasting really sweet in comparison to the noodles and the other protein sources that you're eating. But if you're constantly drinking diet soda, like that's what you're going to think of as sweet, and an apple is always going to be bland. As far as like whether they're healthy or not healthy, or hopefully the quantities that you're consuming them in are so small that it's not going to make a big difference, but
Gotcha. What about GMO versus non-GMO? Should we be aware of certain foods that are GMO, for example, corn?
Yeah, I don't think that's a big deal. I think genetically modifying organisms to not add pesticides and stuff is probably a good thing. But it's just another class of agricultural element. So I don't think GMOs as a whole should be labeled as bad things. But there's a lot going on in that industry that I'm completely naive of, and I'm not going to learn anytime soon.
Okay. I'm not sure. Could you elaborate more on the question of fat intake for cholangiocarcinoma patients who have gone through radical liver resection surgery? Most of us who have had liver resection surgery have our gallbladders removed as well. After surgery, there was issues with continuous constipation despite her diverse diet, high on fiber, hydration, etc. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have any specific tips for you. I would talk to other people and other clinicians, other people who have had a similar treatment, and other clinicians who have seen people go through it before, because I don't know.
What is your view on juicing? Is it good for cancer?
Oh, it shouldn't be replacing your meals. I mean, juices are great. There's a lot of vitamin C. There's a lot of fiber. There's stuff in it that's good. But I think it's important to eat protein and healthy fats on a daily basis.
Can you give us a few examples of antioxidant foods?
Oh, just fruits and vegetables. Colorful fruits and vegetables tend to have antioxidants in them. So, spinach, peppers, apples, bananas, like there's a lot, yeah.
Okay.
Fruits and vegetables.
And this is along the same thing. Can you say more about the research on antioxidants and chemo efficacy?
Yeah, I mean, just really briefly. So some chemotherapies, and I hope I don't misspeak here, but so a lot of chemotherapies work against the cancer by causing oxidative stress. So the antioxidants will then counter that oxidative stress that the chemotherapy is trying to induce, and therefore the chemotherapy is not as effective against the tumor. I think that's like highly oversimplified, but there's a lot of good research if you look online about the specifics of it. And again, that's just talking about like supplements that are in like really, really high doses. It's not going to be antioxidants from the normal whole foods that you buy at the store.
And that's why you should always talk to your doctor about what you're taking for treatment.
Oh, everything. If you're taking a multivitamin, if you're taking vitamin D and calcium, just tell them. and then if there's any sort of contraindications with any other medications that you're on, or it's just good to have that in your clinical notes.
Okay, let's see, there's a few more. What about honey as a sweetener?
Oh yeah, I think that's great. It's actually low glycemic index. It shouldn't, a teaspoon, great. Yeah, great way to make that a little bit sweet, to make it, more enjoyable to go down.
Okay, how much water should you be drinking daily?
Oh, it depends. I mean, it's summer, everybody's sweating, you should be drinking more. If you're concerned that you're drinking like not enough water or too much water, definitely talk to a nutritionist, and they can give you more, more specific guidelines.
Okay. I think the rest of them we've answered. This one is more medical about diverticulitis and colitis, and as far as whole breads, so I'm not sure.
I don't think I can answer that anyway. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Just for everybody, there was a question about the recording. Yes, the recording will be available, and Dr. Kleckner will also provide us with her slides and her resource page. So that will be up on our website, on our YouTube channel. And Dr. Kleckner, thank you so very much for being here today and answering all the questions. We enjoyed it very much. And thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great day.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.